14.1 Part 1 Human Chromosomes and Karyotyping. So we were talking about ideal organisms a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about Gregor Mendel. And do you remember the type of organism that he used to study? That's right, it was pea plants. And what about Thomas Hunt Morgan? He used fruit flies. And both of them used those type of organisms because they produce a lot of offspring. They're easy to grow in the lab, and they have a short lifespan. And when we say a short lifespan, what does that mean? It means that they mature very quickly. Now, we're getting ready to start talking about human genetics, and you'll see that with human genetics, they're not ideal. Humans are not ideal organisms like the plants were, or the bacteria, or the fruit flies were. Most humans have few offspring. Usually it's one at a time. They have a pretty long lifespan. It takes 12, 15, 18 years for humans to mature as far as being able to reproduce, and then humans can't be grown in a lab. So one thing that you should know about when we study human genetics is that we have what's called the human genome. And what the genome is all the DNA that an organism has. That's what a genome is. And they started mapping the human genome back in like the 1950s. If you remember, DNA, the structure of DNA was discovered like in the early 1950s, and right after that they started trying to see what genes are on each of the chromosomes. Humans have how many chromosomes? That's right, we have 46. So that it took them a number of years to be able to figure this stuff out. In addition to the human genome, we also have what is called a karyotype. And basically what a karyotype is a picture of a person's chromosomes. Now, this picture is always taken during mitosis. Many times it's during metaphase. The reason why it's taken during mitosis is because that's when the cell's chromosomes are visible. And if you remember, chromosomes condense during prophase, which is part of mitosis. So after they take a picture of the chromosomes, scientists will then cut out each of the chromosomes and they arrange them into a picture that's known as a karyotype. And they arrange them in homologous pairs. And now if you remember, what were the three things that determine homologous pairs? They need to have the same length, the same genes, and they have to have the same centromere position. So if you look at this picture here, the little stripes that are on the chromosomes, that's as a result of dyeing or staining them, and those represent the genes because the genes all have different chemical properties, and so they stain differently. Here's another picture of a karyotype. So in humans, we have 46 chromosomes, as I said earlier, and that means that we have 23 pair. So if you look at this karyotype, if you notice all the way down on the bottom right, it says 22. The 23rd pair are sex chromosomes, and in this case, there are two X's. So here's your definition of a karyotype. It's the complete diploid set of chromosomes that are grouped together in pairs and arranged in order of decreasing size. Now, as I said earlier, if humans have 46 chromosomes, 2 of those chromosomes are the sex chromosomes, and they determine an individual's sex. So for instance, females have 2 copies of the X chromosome, and males have 1 X chromosome and 1 Y chromosome. So when you're looking at a female, their gametes or their eggs will always have an X chromosome in it, and a male, their sperm, will have either an X or a Y in it. Okay. Now here's it, on the left is a long chromosome, the larger one, and then the smaller one is a Y chromosome. The larger one is an X, the smaller one is a Y. There are approximately 1,200 genes that are found on the X chromosome and only about 140 on the Y chromosome. Now if you look at this X chromosome, they They have marked a couple of different diseases on here. One is muscular dystrophy, another one is hemophilia, and another one is color blindness. So these traits are on the X chromosome. And if they're on the X chromosome, for boys, who would you have gotten this disease from if you had this disease? That's right, your mother, because it comes from the X chromosome. All boys will get their X from their mother and Y from their father. Girls, on the other hand, will get an X from their mother and an X from their father. So in addition to the two X chromosomes, or the X and the Y chromosome, we'll have 44 other chromosomes, and they're known as autosomes. These are autosomal chromosomes, and they are the non-sex chromosomes. Now, when you're looking at a karyotype, biologists will write it as the number of chromosomes, comma, XX or XY, depending on if it's a female or a male. Now, it is possible to only have 45 chromosomes or 47 chromosomes, and we're going to talk about that later on. But just know that a normal female would be a 46XX, and a normal male would be a 46XY. So when we look at human traits, what patterns do human traits follow? Most human traits are either going to be just regular simple dominance, that's the dominance recessive that we've talked about, codominance, and sex-linked. Sex-linked means that it's on one of the sex chromosomes. So most or many of the human traits, as I said earlier, follow what's called simple dominance. One of those is hair color. Okay, here's an example. Dominant alleles for this MC1R gene help produce darker hair colors. Another example of dominant recessive is the Rh factor. We talked about this when we were talking about blood. And pretty much you're either Rh positive or Rh negative. And then Rh positive is dominant to Rh negative. Now, as far as codominance and multiple alleles, that was our blood types. Remember our A, B, and O blood groups? Okay, if you need to, you might need to look back at your notes and remember where we have the IA, the IB, and then the lowercase I. Here is a chart that shows the universal donor, who can donate to who and who can receive from who. Universal donor, remember, was the O type blood, and universal receiver was who? What type of blood? Right, it was the AB blood. The third type of inheritance is sex-linked inheritance, and this is when the gene is located on one of the sex chromosomes. So either the Y or the X chromosome. One example of sex-linked inheritance would be with the condition called color blindness. And what happens here is sometimes people are unable to distinguish between colors. This is on the X chromosome, and it's recessive. So if it's recessive, if men carry the gene or have the gene, they will be colorblind. Women, on the other hand, can either have the disease, be colorblind, carry the color blindness gene, or just have normal vision. Can you see the number 12 and the number 74 in the pictures here? This is a type of test that they would use to see if a person is colorblind. Here you should see the number 58 on the top left. Bottom left is the letter E. Top right is the number 18. And then bottom right is the number 17. So here would be what you would use in order to do your cross, your Punnett square. So you have a normal female, which is C, big C, X, big C, X, big C would be for normal. And then colorblind would be with the little c. Now if you notice, the C's are on the X chromosome. That's because that's where the gene is. So see if you're able to do this Punnett square, and we will talk about it in class. One thing I did talk about earlier was called X chromosome inactivation. And what that is since women, especially women, have two X chromosomes, they don't need double the amount of genes. Remember, there were approximately 1,200 genes on the X chromosome. They don't need double that number. So X chromosomes are able to be inactivated. An inactive X chromosome is called a bar body. Men don't have bar bodies because they only have one X chromosome. So they don't have one that's inactive. In cats, for instance, the color of their fur or the color of their coat is on the X chromosome. And that's how you get calico cats. What happens is you might have an X chromosome that has the allele for orange. You have another X chromosome that has the allele for black fur. And then if that chromosome is switched off or switched on, that allows the cat to have different colors of fur along their bodies. And for the most part, a calico cat would be a cat that's a female. Okay, so males can still have spots of only one color, but you can be almost certain that if the fur of a cat is 3 colors, they're female.